I'm Steve Wiggins, and this is the Groundworks Ministries podcast. Today we're reading from the book of 2 Samuel, chapter 19. So let's focus on verses 9 and 10. Now all the people were in a dispute throughout all the tribes of Israel, saying, "The king saved us from the hand of our enemies. He delivered us from the Philistines, and now he has fled from the land because of Absalom. But Absalom, whom we anointed over us, has died in battle. Now, therefore, why do you say nothing about bringing back the king?" I was glued to the TV news, as was the whole nation, in late August of 2005. A tropical depression turned hurricane was bearing down on New Orleans, and it did not look like the kind of storm that Gulf coasters were used to weathering. Now, having grown up in the southern U.S. and vacationed all along the Gulf Coast as a kid, I was well aware of the potential property damage that huge storms can inflict. And I had driven past the shells of blown-out beach homes many times and washed away tourist attractions. But nobody predicted the enormous impact of Katrina, and it all played out live on cable news. While the storm itself was horrifying, its greatest impact occurred in the storm's aftermath, when the citizens of New Orleans had to cope with the reality that even though they may return to their former houses, they no longer were homes. And that is the impression that 2 Samuel 19 gives us of King David's return from exile. It ends up becoming one of those welcome home maybe situations where David almost wished he hadn't come back. But David returns home as a king, and yet his kingdom seems to crumble in his hands. Remember, this is mostly David's fault. All Israel was in trouble. And, as often happens to people in dilemmas, the sheep began bickering among themselves because they have no shepherd. And the writer allows people to describe the political situation. David delivered us many times, they said, but we anointed Absalom king over us. What a bonehead mistake that was, they were saying. Because now Absalom is dead. So why aren't we bringing David back as the king? And then David got wind of that sentiment, and he fired off an email to the elders of Judah, his own tribe. And he delivered this by his priestly friends, Zadok and Abiathar. God's on David's side. Politics is on David's side. David's on your side. David appealed first to the people's pride. This is Judah, after all. Why should they lag behind the rest of the tribes of Israel in restoring him as king? It is his own tribe, so he's appealing to their relationship as well. David himself was from Judah, bone of their bone, flesh of their flesh. And finally, David appealed to their anxieties. He swore to appoint Amasa, commander of Absalom's army, in place of Joab. And this was a signal that those in Judah who had supported Absalom shouldn't have to fear retribution from the new Davidic regime. David still had the old magic. 2 Samuel chapter 19 verse 4 says, "He won over the hearts of all of the men of Judah, as though they were one man." Yes, David risked polarizing the rest of Israel, but Absalom's revolt had begun in Judah. Therefore, David needed to fortify his own family first, his own Judean people. And it reminds us, if judgment begins in the house of the Lord, then revival must begin there as well. And if there is to be revival in the world, which we should all be praying toward, well, then revival must begin as a revival of unity among the church at large. And that can only happen when the church is unified, not in their politics, not in their social stance, but in God's Word. I'm Steve Wiggins, and this is the Groundworks Ministries podcast. Groundworks Ministries operates entirely through financial donations from faithful people like you. If you're being ministered to through the daily teaching of Groundworks Ministries, and you'd like to help us lead God's people back to the Bible, would you consider donating to Groundworks Ministries today? We need your support now more than ever. Donating is secure and it's easy at our website. Check us out at groundworksministries.com.